So the last thing I'd like to say is that you're not alone as a woman. If you have any, even as a man, any health condition whatsoever, reach out. There are other people out there. You'd be surprised to note that there are other people who've gone through your experience. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
You don't have to, to manage the condition. You want to get help when you need help. You want to make sure that, you connect to the right people who have the right resources to help you.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombat, and I spark the hard conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Living African podcast with your host, Anya Fombat. I have here with me today a very special lady with a very amazing story. Her name is Oyinkan Ogundele, and she is Nigerian. And today we will continue the topic of, shedding light on women's health. And that is a topic of fibroids. Those, in addition to other topics, which I had mentioned before, are one of those topics that I hold very dear to my heart, not only from personal experience, but also because these are topics that we have to keep the conversations going and not let it die. So I want to thank you so much, Oyinkan, for coming on here to Living African podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thank you very much for asking. And I really want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this great work that you're doing. Thank you for featuring me on your podcast. I'd like to say well done. You're doing such a fantastic job.
Thank you so much.
I've seen a few of your videos, a few of your podcasts, and I think that you're really doing excellent. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your kind words. So let's go straight into it. Can you please tell us who is Oyinkan Ogundele?
Sure. That's a very interesting question, but I would really love to answer that. So Oyinkan Ogundele is a young lady. I'm 43 years old. I was 43 in April. Sorry, how could I forget April? And so I'm really blessed. I'm very happy to be alive. I've had a bit of a background with fibroids, and I see myself as a women's health advocate at this time because I look after a lot of people with not just reproductive health challenges. I'm seeing that I'm getting into a few other, issues. I'm getting involved in a few other things. I've helped a few people with breast cancer. I've helped a few people with ovarian cancer. I've helped a man with tuberculosis.
Wow.
I've, sort of assisted, a woman who'd had a full hysterectomy, but then she developed complications from, doctors tampering with or not managing her situation well. And she'd had, her bowels damaged and then had a colostomy bag, fixed, for about 15 months and all of that. So I'm saying that it's not just, reproductive health challenges or fibroids or endometriosis that I'm looking at. We're seeing that, this matter of health is varied. It's not just one thing. And there's so many things, so many issues that affect men and women and children. But we just have to see how we can plug in, how we can find that niche opportunity to do something, make an impact. So, like I said, my experience is with fibroids mainly. So I got diagnosed with fibroids, I think in early 2001 was the first time I really got a diagnosis of fibroids. My first knowledge of fibroids was sometime in 1993, if I'm very correct.
Yeah.
And there was a particular Nigerian journalist and very popular, very well loved. She had died. We woke up to the news on a Sunday morning that she had passed on from complications due to a fibroid surgery. And, I felt really, that was so touching because she was somebody that I looked up to as a mentor.
Yeah.
She was a broadcaster. She ran a blog. She was an editor of a magazine. She was a broadcaster, a newscaster, and all of that. So when I heard that she had died, I was really sad because I was actually looking up to her, and it was because of her that I'd gone on to study mass communication as my first degree. So we woke up to the news that she died, and everyone kept on, how people just passed comments, and people were saying, well, she could have afforded to go to a hospital abroad. Why did she choose to have surgery in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Why did she do this? There were so many questions. But I was really young at the time. In 1993, I was maybe still a teenager.
Yeah.
And I wondered, what this thing called fibroids was. But that was all I knew about it. I didn't have access to the internet at the time to go and Google and see what are fibroids. But, everyone just said fibroids, and, it's something that it was because she was trying to have a baby and blah, blah, blah. And that was it. So when in 2001, I actually got a diagnosis of fibroids, it was like, so the first reaction that I felt after the news broke out that woman had died was, after I got the diagnosis, there was a flashback to that first time when I heard about fibroids. And my first reaction was, fear, like, oh my God, am I going to die, from having this thing called fibroids? Because the only person that I heard that it had happened to, had died.
Yeah.
So that was the first emotion that came to my mind. But the doctor calmed me down. This was in the UK. The doctor said, oh no, you don't have to die. You would need to, just watch it. It's actually very tiny fibroids. They had actually not even grown. They were really small. And I found out through an ultrasound scan, a routine ultrasound scan. So nowadays, I always have to remind people that it's important that we do like a routine annual health check.
Yes.
A lot of countries, are beginning to, a lot of states in Nigeria, for instance, are beginning to incorporate that with, the employment system. So if you're employed in an organization, you should have health, you should be registered with a health management organization. We call them HMOs.
Yeah.
When you sign up with them, then it's like insurance. They cover a lot of your medical costs. Of course, they don't cover so much terminal ailments. So if somebody unfortunately goes down with, cancer, for instance, or a kidney disease, there's really so much that they can cover. But at least for the basic things, for, having a health check done annually, it's important that you sign up with them. And if you're not employed by a corporate organization and you're doing your own personal business, you may also want to sign up to, health insurance, because sometimes medical bills can actually be a lot. They can actually run into, millions. And so it helps people to be insured. Anyway, to go back to my story, so I was afraid. The fear was there. And the doctor said, oh, no, don't be afraid. Actually, these fibroids are really tiny. They're very small. You don't have to do anything. Yeah. And the doctor told me that we're going to adopt the watch and wait strategy, which is okay to adopt, actually. But in hindsight, when I look back at how things panned out, I wish that, when he told me that I should continue to watch and wait, or we adopt that approach, it's important that, people, when you want to adopt that approach, you check regularly, maybe every 6 months or every year, things are. I left mine for about 5 years. So from 2001, the next time I went to see my gynecologist was in 2005. By that time, my periods had now increased. I was using, say, for instance, initially when I started my periods, I was using a pack of pads. I'd now started using about 3 packs of pads for my period. So, the increase was really significant.
Yeah, exponential.
And I was bleeding profusely. I was almost hemorrhaging. It was almost like, you let a tap open. That's how my periods were. Actually, to put it in context, I don't know if you're familiar with a fabric called adire. In Nigeria, we have this fabric. It's tie and dye. The procedure to make this is, we call it tie and dye. Yeah. And basically, put your fabric in dye. You tie it and then you dip it in dye and then you sun it dry. And, when I had periods at that time, it seemed like, to put it in context, it seemed like doing my adire, putting my fabric in the dye, And then instead of putting it in the sun to dry, actually taking it and putting it under running tap, like tap water. And, imagine what would happen. It's not dry yet.
Yeah.
The dye will just wash out of the fabric. And all you're left with will be the pure white fabric. And so I was constantly tired. I began to, feel anemic. I was feeling tired, low on blood, it was just difficult to continue.
Yeah.
But I managed it until sometime in 2007, when at that time, the fibroids had even increased more significantly. They had grown in number. They had, I think, about 23. They had increased about 23 from the one that was found in 2001. So by 2007, I didn't have a choice but to allow the doctors, carry out the surgery. And it was a South African doctor, that performed the surgery, white South African doctor. And, one of the questions that I asked was, because I was still afraid, and I asked, so, what are my chances of survival? He said, as with any surgery, there are risks of complications, there are other risks associated with any surgery. But that, he can assure me that, he's been doing this surgery for so long, maybe he said for 20 years. And, he mentioned that mine was the number so and so that he had done. I don't remember the exact number that I was, in the statistics at the time. But then he also said that, so I asked him, so have you ever had any complications with this kind of surgeries? And he said, okay, well, the only time that he's had a complication was in a young lady, and she was about 27, and that unfortunately she was bleeding throughout after the surgery, and they couldn't stop the bleeding, and so they had to take out her uterus. They had to, do a total hysterectomy. I mean, I was afraid. I was like, no, I'm not having this surgery. But he said no. He answered that question because I asked the question.
Yeah.
But that was only one case in so many thousands that he had done. But eventually, when I didn't have a choice, I had to, subject myself to surgery, because I was then beginning to, so my stomach had increased, like I said, significantly. I was bleeding out. So when I have periods, blood was actually just all over the place. I was having accidents. I would sneeze, blood would just escape. Wow. I would cough and there would be blood all over the place. So it was just impossible to manage. And then, because of that, I had to then go and have surgery. In actual fact, there was a particular time when I became extremely anemic, that my blood count was about 4.6, and the doctors marveled at how I had survived. Because,
wow.
That was low average.
Yeah, that was really low.
They tell me that, yes, from what I know now, they say that a normal person, when your blood is okay and it's normal, you should have about 12 hemoglobin count.
12, yeah. Mine was 10 to 12.
Yes. 10 to 12 years. Apparently, when you're at 10, you're just on average. It drops down to 8.
Yeah.
I hear that doctors need to transfuse you.
Yeah.
They want to transfuse. That's the next available option. Imagine I was 4.6. The doctors they marveled. They were like, they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately they put me on. I had to get a blood transfusion, and I got about 4 pints of blood. And immediately after, I began to see the changes, like, my skin tone changed, color came back to my skin. My skin was clear. I mean, I've been fortunate not to have pimples and all the acne and things that a lot of young people have. But at the time, I actually didn't realize that it was because I was anemic that my skin was not that clear, because the pimples would need blood as well to thrive. That was how bad it was. I was so anemic. I was so tired. Anyway, to come off that, so I then had to have surgery because, like I said, I was just bleeding out. So I didn't have a choice but to, go for surgery. So the procedure that was used at the time, the doctor administered an injection called Zoladex. So the essence of the injection was to shrink the tumor, and they were looking to minimize blood loss. Yeah. Right? So apparently that drug is used for anyone with any kind of tumor. So even people with cancer, doctors administer it just because they want to, when they take the patient in for surgery, into the theater for surgery, they want to minimize blood loss. And so they administered that drug. So I took one injection per month for 3 months. And actually, by the time that the doctor was going to perform the surgery, I told him, I said, doctor, I called him one day to say, or when I went for my next appointment, I said, doctor, I don't need this surgery anymore. And he said, why? I said, because my stomach has gone flat. The fibroids have disappeared. He said, no. They haven't disappeared. They're actually still there. It's just that they're smaller. But we still need to go in through, surgically, to take them out. Otherwise, they will grow back. So that was what the doctor told me about that drug. But I didn't actually realize that there was a bit more that I didn't know. But anyway, that was in 2007. So I had the surgery done in, I think it was in August of 2007 or June of 2007, sometime around that time. Anyway, so from 2007 to about 2010, I was okay. The bleeding was manageable. It wasn't as bad as profuse as, the initial time before I had surgery.
Yeah.
But my period didn't go back to normal time before I started experiencing fibroids. I was still having heavy periods. It was just that it was not as bad as before surgery.
Yeah. So
sometime in 2010, then got married, and a cousin of mine came to visit me one day, and she started asking, so when I have a babies, I'm like, I just got married. I mean, we're not even ready for the babies yet. But she says, no. I mean, at your age, you don't need to wait. Just start. And then she told me about this drug, that people were taking, and that everyone that she knows that has taken it were having multiple children, multiple births. They were becoming pregnant and having, multiple births. So I said, I really don't need this drug because, I actually don't have issues with ovulation. Apparently, the drug, I don't know if I'm allowed to call the name, but I don't want people going to buy the drug. It's an over-the-counter drug. But a lot of people available in the markets in Nigeria. I'm sure it will be available in Cameroon. Well, but in countries where drugs are well regulated, properly regulated, it's not a drug that should be an over-the-counter.
Yes,
right. But I was able to get it over the counter because
no regulations.
Go there and Oga so and so chemist will be able to give you the drug and just tell you take 2 a day or 1 a day or whatever. So I bought this medication, and it helps women with ovulation issues. It helps to regulate their ovulation and maybe to stimulate it and all of that and regulate it. I didn't have issues with my ovulation at the time, but then peer pressure, someone advised me, self-medication basically. I bought the drug anyway, and I read the leaflet. Drugs would usually come with a leaflet.
Yeah.
So one of the contraindications in the leaflet was that if you've ever had fibroids, and you take this drug, you are at risk of, developing fibroids again. You are at risk of your uterus getting enlarged, blah, blah, blah. All of that. You know how things can just seem like, what are the odds that it will be me, that I'm the 1%? But right now, in hindsight and seeing how my journey has transpired, I understand that I'm actually the 1% that they talk about, that is supposed to be the exception, or that 1% chance. I'm part of that 1%.
Yeah.
Right. So which makes me extra careful now with my health because I don't take chances anymore.
Yeah.
So right at the time, I looked at the contraindication and I thought, what are the odds that this would affect me? And I didn't think it would be me. And I took the drug. I only took one dosage, like a pack of the medication. And surprisingly, maybe about a few weeks after, I started noticing that my stomach was getting bigger. So, I thought that, maybe I was pregnant. But then I was doing pregnancy tests, and they were all
negative.
Negative. But my stomach was growing. So I was wondering, why is my stomach growing? Until one day, about the 3rd month, I looked visibly pregnant, except for the fact that
you weren't pregnant.
Were showing that I wasn't pregnant. So I went to a hospital and I consulted with a doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh my, you need to have suspected fibroids," because he had touched and touched, and he said, "I feel like these are fibroids, but let's go and get a scan done." So he did the ultrasound scan, and he went, "Oh my God, you have so many fibroids. Oh my, what are you doing, with this fibroids? There's so many." And I think at the time I actually had a period. So I was also very anemic and very tired. So he looked at the results of my blood count, and all, because he had done a full blood count. And his initial reaction was, "What are you keeping this uterus for? You need to get it out. Like,
oh my God,
you're gonna die." So it was such a bad, when somebody delivers bad news, the doctor it was so tactless.
Yeah.
I would never go back to that hospital anymore. And, people recommended the hospital. It was supposed to be a very good hospital. And the doctor is supposed to be a very, very renowned gynecologist. But on the day, I don't know if it was
a bedside service.
Him,
it's not.
Maybe he just had that day, but it didn't. Again, I was a 1%, maybe, because he just said it badly on the day. And I went home crying because he had just delivered the worst news ever.
Yeah.
This is a newly married young lady. The doctor is telling her that, it's best to get this uterus out because the fibroids is just all over the place and it was just consumed, the entire womb space, and there's really no need to keep this. And with this anemia, with these iron levels, I might as well just go and, get the fibroids out or get the womb out. So I went home really crying. I called the HMO and I was crying and lamenting that this doctor is really a bad doctor. Anyway, at the end of the day, what happened was I left that doctor and then I went on to consult with other doctors and then decided that, again, my mom said, no, you can't have surgery, anywhere else, so I had this second surgery done again in the UK. And this Zoladex injection was administered the second time. And I thought that was okay. But then just before the second fibroid surgery, the doctors had also told me during one of the scans that a cyst was found in my right kidney. And so they were going to continue to monitor it, just watch it.
Yeah.
And if there were any changes, they were going to let me know. So just before the second surgery, they told me that I had, that cyst and that they needed to take it out. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm having a myomectomy, which is the surgery to remove fibroids.
Yeah.
In a few weeks' time. That's fine. You can just do the two surgeries at the same time and I can just heal nicely and I'll just go back to work within 6 weeks. And the doctor said, oh, no, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
That's not how easy it is. There are two major surgeries and that you cannot do them together except you want to kill yourself.
Bleed, you can bleed to death.
The pain. He actually said that the pain alone would kill me. So he said that I needed, so they're giving me a note to go to the hospital for the other, surgery. So right after I'd done the fibroid surgery, I was prepping for the right partial nephrectomy, the surgery was called, because it was a surgery to remove a part of the kidney. So during the pre-op assessment, the sonographer was then, doing another scan, and she was like, oh my God, what are these things? Oh, you have so many of them. And then it turned out that they were fibroids. And I was like, no, you're kidding me. You can't be serious. Like, I had surgeries. It's not even 6 weeks yet.
Yeah.
My notes, it was at this hospital. There's no way that I would have fibroids. You should look at them. There's so many. Lo and behold, less than 6 weeks after my second myomectomy surgery, I realized that I needed a third one.
Wow.
And I was like, what? What's going on here? I mean, I was hysterical. The doctor put in my notes that the patient became hysterical because I was just crying and I couldn't understand what was going on. He then asked if I had who my next of kin was. Then he called my mom and was, explaining everything to her, and then next thing anyway, at the end of the day, I decided that, I was going to allow them perform the surgery to remove the cyst from my kidney. If I'd known what I know now about that surgery, maybe I wouldn't have allowed it. But thank God that I actually didn't figure it out, or I didn't find out. I didn't do any research about it at the time, because if I did, maybe I would have said that they shouldn't do the surgery. It was a major, apart from the fact that it was a major surgery, it was also an invasive surgery. They were poking and prodding. How do I know? I watched a video online subsequently, because 8 weeks after I'd had the surgery, I couldn't stand upright.
Wow.
I was so crouching over. I was in so much pain. Then the doctors said that apparently the reason I was in that much pain was because they had cut through a nerve that goes through my spinal cord. And so, and that's why I was experiencing a lot of pain. And anyway, the cyst was taken out. The doctors tested it. They said that it was a carcinoma. It was a renal carcinoma, which obviously, as you know, is a cancer.
Yeah.
So, but because they had found it early, they had nipped in the bud. It hadn't spread. It hadn't gone anywhere else. So they're just taking it out. And then they sent it off for testing. But the very interesting thing was that the doctors then said that they were going to test me for what do you call it? They were suggesting that I may have a genetic defect.
Yeah.
Because I'd had this fibroids, which they termed aggressive fibroids. And then I also had, this cyst in my kidney. They felt that I had a genetic defect. And they called the condition HLRCC. And the HLRCC, basically, HLRCC syndrome, it means hereditary leiomyomatosis and renal cell cancer, HLRCC. And so they were looking for another thing. So they'd found two things. They'd found fibroids. They'd found that I had a renal cyst. And they were looking for a third thing, which was supposed to be lesions on my skin, like growths on the skin.
Yeah.
And if they had found that, they would have been able to say categorically that I had a genetic defect. But because thankfully they didn't find that third thing, they could not put me in the 100% chance of having a genetic defect. But they sent me off to a genetic testing clinic, and I registered for about 5 years. The doctors were testing, checking, did my family history, family tree, and all of that. But anyway, I had to come back. Thankfully, I had MRIs done every year. In fact, it was every quarter for a while. Then it became twice a year. And then, right now, I think it's about once a year. And since 2013 till date, thankfully, by God's grace, I've been fine. I haven't had a repeat of that situation with the cancer. But I still had to go to revisit the fibroid story, because don't forget that I said during the pre-op for the kidney cysts to be removed, I was told that I still had fibroids. So I thought, what happened? So that got me really curious. In Nigeria, we say something. We say maybe it's home trouble. Home trouble means, maybe it's a curse. Maybe there's somebody behind the matter and all of that. I started thinking that way because I couldn't understand.
Like your village people are.
Village people, that's what. Village people, village people have told me that I recently had surgery, and they're telling me that the same reason I had surgery, I need to go for a third surgery. So I started researching. Then I found out that one of the characteristics of the Zoladex injection was that it had the tendency or potential to shrink tumors, so much so that some of the tumors would shrink that the doctors could not see the fibroids either during the surgery, or maybe some of them were so tiny they were almost insignificant, almost negligible, or they thought this one is not going to do any harm. And so that was what the problem was. So the fact that you leave a fibroid behind, even if it's as tiny as a mustard seed or as a rice grain, it has the potential to grow back to the original size. So which was what I encountered. So once you stop taking that medication, within 6 weeks of stopping it, the fibroids can actually grow back again. So that became my dilemma. I'd been cut open for nothing, unfortunately, as I realized, because the fibroids that I thought had been taken out were actually very much still there. So it became a dilemma. I don't know if I should call it that. That was my plight.
Yeah.
And I was going through that, and I was suffering, and I still continued to bleed profusely. So I then started looking for another doctor to do the fourth major surgery, which was then supposed to be my third myomectomy. In fact, before all of these surgeries, I tried herbs, I drank all sorts of things. I actually am convinced that one of the reasons that I had that cyst in my kidney was as a result of all the
concoctions
that I don't even know what were mixed together. One time, one of my in-laws brought something to me to say, "Oh, drink this." The person that drank it 2 months ago in a particular part of Nigeria, had the fibroid like a baby, and so they were encouraging me to drink the same thing. And lo and behold, when I put the drink, they brought it in a plastic bottle, but it was a dark container. I couldn't see the content. So as I lifted, they said, "Don't put it in a cup. Just carry the bottle to your mouth and drink it."
Oh, wow.
And as I was about to do that, this stench that came out of the bottle, the smell,
wow,
it was like a mixture of petrol and kerosene. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
It was like, it seemed like, something really potent, something really strong. And I was like, what is this? What's in this thing? Do you guys want to kill me?
Oh,
How
my God.
bad can this thing be that you're bringing me this? They said, no, drink up. Don't say you're not drinking it. We knew that you would say no. And that's why no, but you can't give me something like this. I don't know what is in it. What exactly? They gave me all sorts of things. On that day, I refused I refused bluntly. I said, no, there's no way I'm drinking this thing. Mm-hmm. But, for that time, I drank all sorts of things.
Yeah.
In fact, one day recently, I met a lady who told me that someone advised her to drink juice from cactus plants. Mm-hmm. I know you know the cactus plant. A lot of people say it's poisonous. I don't know how somebody would tell her to drink it.
Yeah.
But the reaction she had was that her entire mouth, she had a sore gum everywhere in her mouth was sore. Her mouth peeled.
Yeah.
So, people, when you have a medical condition that you don't seem to understand, all sorts of people will come with advice. Sometimes the advice may not even make sense. In fact, a mad person can tell you that, all you need to do is go and drink water from so-and-so place and you'll be fine. And if you're not careful, you will take that advice just because you're looking for a solution.
Well, you're desperate.
So this is because people should not be desperate to start trying things that are not tested. Before you take anything that is a herb, ask to see someone who's taken it before. Ask questions.
You ask a doctor, first of all, ask a medical, someone who's specialized in that field.
To tell you, they will tell you that nothing works. But sometimes we don't believe them. We think, they're
biased.
They think if you get anything really strong, like a gin or alcohol, it can break down the fibroids. But that's actually a lie. Yeah. Fibroids are muscular in nature. And so, the way they are muscles and nothing breaks them down, except really if you have a miracle or, you have surgery. So that's what I want to say. I know there are people who say that they go on a diet, they juice, they do this, they do that. I've not seen anyone who, by myself, I can say I know that this has worked for. So if I have somebody who has gone through that process, I'd actually like to follow them and I'd like to see the results and then I'll be able to recommend. But for now, I know just a few ways. If you don't get divine healing, know that you go medically, you get medical healing. Those are the two ways that I know right now. Nothing else works as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So that's it for that. So then, were you going to say something? I don't know.
I wanted to just add that actually, first of all, the disclaimer for this episode is that we're not specialized in fibroids or women's health from a health professional perspective. This is strictly based on personal experience and just external experience as well. So all the things we're saying are not factual. They're based on experience in general. But what I wanted to add to what you said was, I personally have probably met just one person who, based on her experience, has had some sort of success with fibroids. And I think I interviewed her in one of the earlier episodes. I think the title is A Different Perspective of Healing from Fibroids, something of that sort. I'm going to share that with you, and I'm also going to add that to the show notes of this episode. And
I was watching it earlier on. I actually saw that.
Right. So I would actually recommend that you reach out to her, to Mane. That's her name, Mane Ndoping, actually. I recommend that you reach out to her just to pick her brains and see, her point of view and her reasoning and her own experience, because the thing too is that, and that's also one of the things that we will address eventually. We're used to always doing something because somebody else has done it, like the multiple examples that you have given to me, your family member or a loved one will say, oh, take this. Somebody who did this has, had this kind of thing. But then sometimes even medications, even medically, people react differently to medications. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying that to reinforce what you're saying, that it's very important for us to really know what we're putting into our system and not just taking it because somebody else has taken it. So that's just what I wanted to add. But it's a very interesting perspective. Medically, I have not seen anybody that has been completely healed from fibroids with any other way than, there's no cure to fibroids, by the way. There's a lot of research that has been done. This one is a fact. A lot of research has been done and, they're still trying to even understand the source of fibroids, but ways to make it better, like you said, surgery. And just because the fibroid has gone away does not mean that it cannot come back, or just because it's small does not mean that it cannot grow, So, but Mane's story. That's the only person that I have heard her story, and it got me thinking like, there may be something into it. But then again, that approach that she took towards fibroids is relative to her and not like a universal approach. So I totally agree with you.
Sure. And the other thing that I'd like to say is that, it also depends on the size of the fibroid, the location of fibroids and all of that. There's so many factors that we have to consider before we, choose the best option. But yes. I was actually listening to Manu's,
story.
podcast. Mm-hmm. But I didn't finish listening to it. So I'll listen and definitely I like to connect. I like to, reach out to other people and hear their experiences. And if it's something that works, trust me, I'll be recommending whatever it is that she's used, asking other people to try it. And, because, the research that you say, are being done or have been done, they're being done, but it's actually not sufficient because it hasn't really, we haven't been able to say categorically that this is real cause of fibroids.
Fibroids, yes.
Yes. And so until that, we can
find the cause. Yeah.
Yes, until we find a cause,
we cannot find a solution. Yeah, we need to have a problem to solve.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you for providing that insight. And then I would like to say, so that was my second surgery. So, and then I needed a third surgery. And then after the kidney episode, let me leave that part out because it's another long story. We're not talking about this right now. But I then had to find a doctor to do my fourth major surgery, which was then my third myomectomy. So at this time, I realized that, I had to then take my own health, take charge of my own health, like take my own health more seriously and be my own health advocate. So I preach that a lot now, that women to be their own health advocate. You know your body best. You know your body better than any other doctor. And so you know when things are not going right. Right now, I know how I'm feeling. And if I feel something that I didn't feel yesterday, I know to raise, to question it. And so that's what I want women to do. That was supposed to be part of my closing charge anyway. Yeah. But it's okay that I'm getting in now because maybe somebody may not listen to the end of this podcast. It's very important that you take charge of your health. So at that time, when I realized that, come on, these doctors, are they kidding me? Like, how can I have the same surgery 3 times? What's going on? I began to research. And then I found out that the Zoladex injection that was being used for me, maybe it works for other people, but it wasn't working for me. And the other thing is, I suspect that they're not taking feedback. If doctors were taking feedback, I'm sure they would have found other people who like
had
me,
the same issue.
Zoladex didn't work for, and they would have been able to know that healthcare is not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yep.
And so you have to customize, the healthcare healthcare plan for different people. Yeah. Maybe you have like 10 different buckets and say, if women are this age, this color, this size, this, I don't know what the parameters would be, but you can then classify people based on certain, parameters and say, okay, you think that this is best suited to treat this person's fibroids, as opposed to telling everyone that you all need to have surgery, you all need to have a hysterectomy, you all need to have a this, you all need to have a that. It has to be customized.
Yeah.
So if doctors were taking feedback, they would have known, at least I, for instance, would have given feedback that this Zoladex that you guys gave me the first time and second time, it definitely did not work. And so you should, consider other options for some women when they've had repeat, sessions with fibroids. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so at that time, I was then looking for a doctor who was not going to use Zoladex. I knew that was consulting with a lot of doctors abroad. A lot of them actually use this injection. Mm-hmm. So I then came to Nigeria to look for a doctor. So I consulted with so many doctors actually. And that's why right now I preach. So when I say preach, not preach,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I advocate that women should have a connection. That is important that you have a connection with your doctor. And when I say connection, you have to feel like this doctor knows what they're saying. You feel comfortable with what they're saying. You feel at peace when you're with them.
Yes.
You feel a point where if you're...
They want your best interest.
Yes. You know that they want your best interest and you feel like to you, it's like you're almost in the hands of God, basically, when you're speaking to your doctor. Right. So I was looking for, I was looking for that doctor who I would connect with. And there were so many other doctors who were very much qualified, and I just didn't connect with them. Some of them sounded like, one time I consulted with a particular doctor. It sounded like a butcher, because all I kept on hearing was, these are just fibroids. We just need to cut it. And all I could see was a picture of a man in an abattoir where they kill rams. This guy is just cutting me, and that was all I could see. And I was like, this guy is a butcher. So, have, that thing that checks you. I always say that women, we human beings, really, when you're in a place of danger, there's something that corrects you. There's something that checks you. There's something that tells you that this is not safe. I don't know about your instincts, growing up, but in the part of Nigeria where I'm from, people talk about, when you enter vehicles that, I don't know how to say this. We call something one chance. Like, people get into vehicles where someone's about to rob you or rid you of your possessions. Yeah. When you get into such vehicles, sometimes, something that checks you. Yeah. If you're a Christian, you say it's the Holy Spirit. If you are not a Christian, you may say it's sixth sense. I don't know if, other people of other faith have, I'm sure we all have it, but there will be something that they call it. But that thing that checks you, that tells you that you're in a place of danger, I want you to put it into use when you're with your doctor. Going to your doctor is almost like going to your mechanic. Yeah. You're taking your car to a mechanic. If you take your brand new car to a mechanic that is not trained to look after that car will come out worse than it went in. Yeah. It's the same thing as you going to a doctor who you don't feel a connection with, who is not equipped to look after you. You understand? Mm-hmm. You will come back battered, even worse than when you went to see the doctor. Yeah. So it's important that you connect to your doctor. When I found the doctor that performed my final surgery, I knew it that, yes, I'd found the right person. Because everything that he said was in alignment with the things that I was, that I'd researched and I was looking to find out. So, and then he kept on assuring me, okay, madam, this is what we need to do now. Right now, the fibroids are sitting on your bladder. It's beginning to affect your kidney. It's beginning to do this. If you don't do this, this will happen. And I was connecting with everything he was saying. I didn't feel like I was talking to a butcher. Of course, he was still saying the same thing. Yeah. It was going to cut the fibroid.
But it's the way he said it.
It was not, the way he said it, it didn't sound like I was speaking to a butcher. You can talk to, really qualified doctors and you don't connect with them. And I also want women to know that not every doctor is your doctor. The same way not every mechanic is your car mechanic. So you can't take a Mercedes Benz to a Peugeot workshop. You may not, that person may not be able to fix it. So you just need to find the right doctor, connect with your doctor, be sure that person is your doctor, and prayerfully consider it. And, you'll be fine. I'm here as somebody who's had 4 major surgeries, and, I'm doing well, doing better than where I was coming from before I had even the surgeries. I still have my uterus intact. Everything is still fine. Wow. The other thing I'd like to also encourage women, a lot of doctors say, hysterectomy is the only option. They talk to women because they see the size of their fibroids, the number of the multiple, fibroids that they have. And the first thing they recommend is hysterectomy. I want women to have it at the back of their minds that sometimes doctors actually are working to their own interest. Yeah. They're looking for the thing that would work quickest, the solution that is the easiest for them to deal with. Yeah. They're not looking, actually, it doesn't mean that they've considered the outcomes for you. And they are looking, only a few doctors are actually, looking at it holistically and saying that, okay, actually, this woman still wants to have a child. This woman is 25. If we take out the uterus, how is she going to, menopause? Is she going to need hormonal treatment? All of that. Not all doctors think through like that for you. They're just looking to solve the immediate problem. They don't mind if you come back in 2 years' time. So that's the reason that you want to be your own health advocate, and you want to see what's best for your own body before you make a decision. And it's the reason that I also ask women, before you go to any doctor, you want to also find a few people who've gone through that same experience. Ask for their experiences. If it tallies with your experience, it's possible that you may be able to use their story to map out a treatment plan yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, this feels like revelation to me, actually, because it's the first time I'm saying what I just said now. That you may want to find a few people. It basically just came as Rema.
Yeah.
You may want to find a few people who've gone through the same thing that you've gone through, and knowing what they've been through and relating it with how you feel, you may be able to map out a great treatment plan for yourself.
Right.
I think that's it in a nutshell. I'll let you take over from here. But I would like to actually speak very well. I'm better than I was 6 years ago. I've not been sick in 5 years. COVID came. I'm the only one that I know that hasn't had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else that I've come in contact with has had COVID, including members of my own family, including people that I live in the same house with. People had COVID, and miraculously, I don't know how my immune system is so tight right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's from all the blood transfusions that I've had or all the charcoal that I ate, because, I didn't tell you about my experience with pica. So when I was very anemic, I had this experience with pica. And I accidentally found out that it's called pica because one day I was tempted. I ate charcoal. And, if you eat activated or treated charcoal, I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
But if you eat charcoal that is kept in the most unkempt conditions, you begin, I had that fear that, maybe I'd eaten poison. And that was what made me go onto the internet to see, I've eaten charcoal. What are the side effects? And I found, a community of crazy people on the internet that are suffering from something called pica. So pica is a condition where your body is craving non-food items.
Yeah, non-food items.
Just to satisfy a craving. It's usually because of a deficiency.
Yeah.
It could be an iron deficiency. It could be some other kinds of deficiencies. But people who suffer anemia, have pica. And I experienced that a lot. I mean, I had my white blood count at some point was 27,000. The doctors were like, what is this? A normal count should probably be a 5,000 or so.
Yeah.
And they were battling to bring my temperature down. I was in such a bad state at the time. But right now, I've not been sick in 5 years. I'm
wow.
I just need to go to the doctor just to go and, smile at my doctor. Because otherwise, the doctor will just think this lady hasn't come to see me in a long time. So that's basically where I'm at right now. Everything is doing well. Even my hair is looking good.
Right? Everything looks snatched. Right. Thank you so much for sharing your story. My goodness. There's nothing more to ask. You've just said everything. I swear, there's really nothing more to ask. So, you elaborated this story so well. You gave so much advice to people in our community. I mean, the avid listeners of this platform should already know so much about fibroids in terms of, typical signs and symptoms and all those things. So we're not really going to go into it because we've spoken about that so many times. But I also try to, ask the guests as well to just talk about what they experience from their own personal experience, right? So I know that you were bleeding a lot when you had your period with the fibroids and stuff. So at what age did you first start experiencing the bleeding? And then did you have pain? What other symptoms did you experience which warranted you to pay the doctor a visit?
Okay. Fantastic questions, actually. Thank you for asking those. So I got diagnosed fibroids in 2001. This is 2022. So I probably was about 21 years old at the time. So which brings me to the question a lot of people ask that, we thought that fibroids only happens to people who are much older. No, fibroids, we're beginning to see much younger people, 18 and, to about 21, 27, having fibroids. So fibroids is not something that just older people have. Any woman with a uterus can actually have fibroids. And I got diagnosed at a very, very young age.
Yeah.
So I probably started experiencing the heavy bleeding maybe at age 25. Thankfully, I didn't have any pain. My periods were very normal in terms of pain. And it's good that you've asked that about pain, because actually we're beginning to find out now that painful periods are actually not normal. Yeah. And could be as a result of other conditions, maybe endometriosis, maybe some other, maybe even PCOS and some other conditions. So women really need to, get a proper diagnosis, because I know that endometriosis is something that isn't properly diagnosed, and it's something that a lot of women suffer
from. Yeah.
As well. Yeah, it's one other thing that you want to invite someone to speak about in the future, because it's like the twin sister of fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis, and are also conditions that really put women in a lot of pain and discomfort. Yeah, and because a lot of it is not diagnosed properly, because just an ultrasound scan may not be able to detect endometriosis. Usually it's when women are opened up. Recently, I had a member of my community that came to me, and I recommended that she should see a doctor. By the time the doctor performed the surgery, they realized that she had actually also had endometriosis. So sometimes women have like multiple conditions in one, and it's the one with the most prominent side effect or effect that the doctor spot first. There are other conditions. Thankfully, I didn't have pain, but I was praying for pain as opposed to
the heavy bleeding.
Heavy bleeding. Yeah. But sometimes God doesn't answer all prayers. I don't know what would have happened if that prayer was answered, but I was really genuinely praying that I should swap the anemia with pain. My threshold of dealing with pain is a lot higher than what other people experience. But I don't know if the kind of pain that I prayed for, if that pain came, maybe I would have said, oh God, I don't actually want this pain.
Right.
I prefer to, but I didn't like the experience with the anemia. And so I was really, really praying for pain. But the other symptoms that I had was, bulkiness around my
abdominal area.
Stomach, abdominal area. It was so big, and I was experiencing a lot of bloatedness. I found that when I was drinking, I stopped drinking milk, because every time I drank milk or took yogurt and things like that, I could just feel like my stomach begin to grow immediately. So people with fibroids, want to, cut down on things like milk, red meats, even white starchy foods, bread, pastries, and all of those things, processed foods. We want to cut down on them as much as possible and, boost up our fruit and fiber intake, take more vegetables, leafy greens. I don't know, maybe that's what's helping me right now. Like I said, I've not been sick, but I'm, really dosing up on my my vegetables and my fruits every single day. I try and make an effort. I never used to like eating vegetables or eating fruit. The other symptoms that I experienced was frequent urination.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I would go to the loo almost 4 times every 20 minutes. It was like that. But I will find that when I get to the bathroom, with the way that I was feeling so pressed, and I get into the bathroom, it would just trickle down.
Yeah.
Like it won't be a full, emptying of my bladder. And 5 minutes after or 10 minutes after, I feel like going again. When I asked my doctor, the doctor actually explained why that was happening, that I was not, because of the way the fibroid was sitting on my bladder, I wasn't expelling all the urine, but the urine was still there. So I would go back and I was like, I'm tired. I'm actually not one person that likes going to the loo, especially when I'm not in my house. I'm not comfortable using people's bathrooms. Imagine me having to go to the bathroom every so often. So it was very, very uncomfortable. So, there were several other symptoms. What else? Yes. So, but the main ones were the fact that my skirts, I couldn't wear trousers. I didn't like the look of trousers on me because my stomach was just always looking bulky. I was always looking very pregnant. Everyone, I get into the banking hall and people are moving me from the back of the queue to the front because I looked like I was ready to have a baby. And no one wanted a woman having a baby in their banking hall.
Right.
And a lot of times, people are surprised. I'm wondering what's going on. But when I look at my stomach, at how large it looks, I realized that, oh, wow, I understood why. And I think the last surgery that I had, about 42 fibroids were taken out. Wow. In fact, I said that, there were 42. It was a lot and different sizes. It was just very difficult. Wow. A very difficult time, but I'm thankful that I'm over it now. And I can share my experience without crying.
I know. Thank you so much for sharing that, Now let's talk about the anemia.
I actually say something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead, please.
The most important part was the heavy bleeding. So apart from the anemia, the fact that I couldn't wear white. So tonight I'm wearing white.
Yes.
There's a significance with wearing white. If you see a lot of my pictures, I'm beginning to wear white now because I didn't have one single item of white when I had fibroids. It was
Wow.
just pointless wearing white because my period could just start. And before I know it, my clothes would be soiled. So I didn't have, all my clothes were black. I didn't wear any white. And I couldn't stand red as well because I was always seeing red in my periods.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like the sight of red. So right now, if you look in my wardrobe, you find a section of red, a lot of red clothes. I have so many of them. I have a lot of white clothes, so many of them. And, this story is just that I can wear white. I'm part of there's a movement in America called the White Dress Project, I think. They do something, they call it themselves that one of their, what do you call it, that we can wear white. Yeah. And I like what they're doing so much that, women are free to bloom. We're free to wear our whites. So yes, that's one part that I forgot to mention. Heavy bleeding. That was always soiling my clothes. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing once more. Just to focus a little bit on the anemia, because a lot of people, including myself, are probably, I are anemic. I have anemia, especially during my time of the month. And normally my blood hemoglobin levels are relatively lower. So sometimes I have to supplement with iron supplements. But I wanted you to talk about how that anemia impacted your quality of life, because I know that you said you would rather the pain than the anemia, So what symptoms did you experience with that anemia, and how did that affect your quality of life to the point that you would actually prefer pain than the anemia?
I love your questions. They're phenomenal questions. Thank you for asking. So my experience with anemia was really, really bad. And I would explain. So one of the first things that I will talk about is tiredness.
Yes.
I was constantly tired. I was always tired. Like, I'll wake up. When people have slept, you've slept through the night and you should wake up feeling refreshed and energized. I didn't have, my energy levels were always so low. And like I painted that picture, it feels like, once I had a period, the quality of my blood just depletes. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I said, putting
water,
tie and dye under running tap, and everything just washes off. So yes, I'll still have blood, but the quality of it, the good part of it, is washed off. It's just washed down the drain. So that's how bad it was. So I was always tired.
Wow.
I had a lot of out-of-body experiences.
Yes.
Like I had dizzy spells leading to me having, there'll be times when I'm actually literally having to hold on to something to stay within myself. I don't know how to describe this because it's not a feeling that everybody...
It's like lightheadedness, dizziness, and you're like hallucinating.
Dizziness, hallucinations, yes. But sometimes I actually felt like I was coming out of my spirit. I don't know, like something, like life was being snuffed out of me a lot of times. And you can understand that if somebody that is supposed to, if normal blood count is 12, between 10 and 12, and then I was having 4.6.
Yeah.
Clearly, it was almost like putting a car on the road, filling it with petrol or gas, but not having engine oil in the engine. Mm-hmm. The tank would be full, but the engine will shut down at some point.
Yeah.
That was basically what was going on with me. So the battle with tiredness, with fainting spells, dizzy spells, it was just impossible to manage.
Yeah.
And it also robbed me of, apart from my quality of life personally, it also robbed me of, things at work. I couldn't concentrate. Concentration was difficult.
Yes, because you need enough blood flow.
Because apparently blood, even my Bible tells me that blood is life.
Yeah.
That life of a thing is in the blood, is in its blood. Mm-hmm. And so when you don't have blood, even
to your
people
brain.
Ask you for your age, for your name, you're almost thinking, how old am I? You're almost thinking, what was my last age? You understand?
Yeah.
Which name should I give? It's almost like thinking
it's slow. Yeah.
It's not clear. You don't have mental clarity. So that alone was bad. And when you're in a job where you're assessed on things that you do for you to be able to get a promotion, then that kind of woman is going to be stunted. You're going to have stunted growth because nobody wants to promote you because you're half the time you're not even there, you're not even present.
Yeah.
I remember in the past I've been queried for things that I shouldn't normally get queried for, but I've been assigned this task, but I'm struggling with my health. I've even forgotten that I'm supposed to deliver this item. It's the day that they're asking for it that I remember, oh my God.
Yeah.
So things like that, it robs you of the story of that woman with the issue of blood in the Bible.
Yeah.
I always say that, if we get to heaven I'm going to go and look for her, and I'm going to tell her that she is really a woman and a half. Like, she's gone through everything possible. The Bible says that she spent all she had. She saw all the physicians. You know, it was very difficult. I know that at the time, even I'm sure that she couldn't even have gone into church for anyone to have prayed for her. So it was such a difficult thing that she went through. And so I just want to encourage women out there. If you have this thing, you know, find a solution to it. Don't continue to live with it. You cannot continue to live with anemia. It is dangerous.
It is. Die. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I personally, on a personal level, like, remember I said I'm normally on the lower end of, you know, the spectrum when it has to do with the normal limits of the hemoglobin in the blood. And I remember several years ago, I had a twin miscarriage, and I remember I lost so much blood in addition to the fact that I was already borderline low in hemoglobin levels. I lost so much blood. I think my hemoglobin level was about 6 or something of that sort. And they had to do 2 pints of blood. They had to transfuse 2 pints of blood into my system. And I experienced the symptoms that you just spelled out. In addition to that, one of the very prominent symptoms that I also experienced was like extremely fast heart rate, which is tachycardia, especially when I didn't even have to stand up. Like, when I was laying on the bed and I sat up, my heart rate just went off. And that's just because, you know, the heart actually pumps the blood, right? So when there's not sufficient blood circulating in your system to balance off the heart rate, then the heart now tries to overcompensate for that low blood levels in your body and tries to overpump the blood, you know, to go through the body and make up for what's low. And in that case, it's very, very easy to have like heart failure or something of that sort, because your heart just overworks itself and then it starts failing, you know. So those are one of the symptoms that, you know, people can watch out for. You know, men and women who are anemic can also watch out, especially when your blood levels are getting dangerously low that you may need a blood transfusion, you know. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now let's talk about the organization that you started. You have such an amazing story, and I'm very sure that you actually had such a reason. In French, we say raison d'être, you know, to start that organization, because I'm very sure you didn't want other women to go through what you went through. So can you please tell us more about your organization and how the audience can support you?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. You're absolutely spot on that I didn't want any other, or I still don't want any other woman, any other person to go through the things that I had to go through. I believe that if I had somebody who was doing what I'm doing now at the time that I was going through, you know, my experience with fibroids, I would not have needed 4 major surgeries to get into the place that I'm at now. So I, you know, started in 2020, July of 2020, I started this organization that I call My Gynae Foundation. And we do a few things. We try to help women. When I say we, myself and, you know, members of the community, because we're building a community. And it's beyond me. So I'm not going to continue to say me. Yes, I founded, you know, but, you know, we're working with a lot more people to make sure that we are reaching a lot more women. But what we're doing is, number one is providing information. Obviously, there's a lot of information out there, but information, like I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And people need to understand that we have to, you know, customize healthcare. So when you're dealing with fibroids, what sort of fibroids are they? Where are they located? Those kind of questions will help women, you know, will help us make informed choices and know how to deal with, you know, the particular type of fibroids that this person has. Or because of the number that they have, these are the options that are available to this person. So information is out there, but making people understand or pick the information that works for them is number one thing that we do. So yes, there's availability of information, but helping to channel the information rightly, helping people connect to the information the correct way is one important thing that we do. Number 2 thing that we do, and apart from raising awareness, is that we also walk women through that journey. Like I said, if I had somebody doing what I'm doing now, I would not have needed the number of surgeries, because I would have known to ask the right questions. I would have known for a fact that when doctors leave fibroids behind, they will tend to grow back. I mean, doctors are, people say that, how long does it take for fibroids to grow back? In July, on the 16th of November, I celebrated 5 years of living without fibroids. I mean, I still feel my stomach, I still touch it. And this is me coming from a place where I had a diagnosis of fibroids 6 weeks after I had a surgery. For me to be 5 years without it means that if you find a doctor that does the right thing, or if you find the right treatment, fibroids don't have to, to occur that frequently.
Yeah.
Yes, I do understand that new ones can grow even after all the old ones were taken out. But I want doctors to at least know that they want to take out everything, because I speak to ladies and I hear them say, the doctor said I have 6 fibroids, but we only need to take out 2. Because those are the ones that are in the cavity of the uterus. The other 4 are not very important. They're outside. What happens when you leave those ones? They grow back. I always say it, in our Nigerian parlance, we say it takes room and parlor. Like, it just spreads its tentacles.
Yeah.
They become bigger because they find that there's more room, there's more space for them to grow. So doctors need to understand that we want to get rid of all the fibroids, and that hysterectomy is not the first option that they should provide to women. Then we also help women that are indigent. So we have, in this part of the world where we're from, we find a lot of women who their daily wages or their daily living, they don't earn enough to be able to help themselves through hospital. And not everyone has health insurance, you understand? So sometimes we find people who are indigent, who can't afford the cost of their care, who are bleeding profusely, who are actually hemorrhaging. And if there's no help inside, they're just going to, eventually die. So we step in those cases where we have people with life-threatening cases. We try and help to raise funds and, try and help them get solutions to their issues. So those are some of the things that we do. We're also building a community where, people are sharing experiences. So I've had this, I share my experience. You've had the same experience. You share your experience. And like I said, with other people's experiences, women should be able to map out by themselves a treatment plan, a treatment pattern that works for them. Yeah. And remember that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to health. Yeah. So what we do with My Gynae, and we are on www.mygynae.org, and Gynae is spelled Gynae. I like to spell it out because there's the American, apparently there's the American, and there's the British. Yes. So Gynae.org. We are available there, so anyone looking for information can connect with us via that. We're available on Instagram. Its handle is My Gynae Issues. We're available on Facebook. And on YouTube. We're called My Gynae Issues Foundation. On those platforms, I'm going to try and see how we can modify all these names so that everything is uniform. But initially, when I got the idea, when I conceived the idea, I called it My Gynae Issues Foundation. But then some people came and said, "Oh no, you don't want it to sound so negative." So right now we're promoting My Gynae. We're leaving out the issues and all, but the name that is actually registered is My Gynae Issues Foundation. So yes, those are the avenues that you can reach us on. I'm also available on Instagram. I'm at Lady Oyin O on Instagram. People can connect with me. Yeah. I don't charge any money for the work that I do. I do it with so much zeal and passion because, like I said, I don't want anyone else to have to experience 4 major surgeries just to get rid of fibroids. I always say that fibroids is just a condition. It's not a death sentence. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. I know women who've had other non-invasive procedures as well, because there are, increasingly we're beginning to see that there are other non-invasive. Non-surgical procedures that people are using, and they're finding that they're actually working. Recently, I know a young lady who had a procedure called HIFUs, high intensity focused ultrasound. So if that's available, by all means, take
advantage of it.
That's in a nutshell. Thank you for
Yeah. Thank you so much, Oyinkan. I'm definitely going to put your information on the show notes for people who are interested in supporting. You're doing such great work. You know, you have lots and lots of resources and videos on your social media platforms, including YouTube. So I would really urge members of our community to watch that. And, you know, the fact that you're not even getting paid for this is just a passion project and you're making such an impact. It's more than enough incentive for, you know, members of our community to patronize your organization and just to support, because at the end of the day, one person cannot do it all. You can't do it without the support. So I'd really love to urge members of our community to check out www.mygynae.org and try to support the work that Oyinkan is doing. So I know we've already spoken a lot about, you know, the advice that you have, especially for women in the community. So what more do you have to add before we wrap up this conversation?
So the last thing I'd like to say is that you're not alone as a woman. If you have any, even as a man, any health condition whatsoever, reach out. There are other people out there. You'd be surprised to note that there are other people who've gone through your experience. You're not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you know, to manage the condition. You want to get help when you need help. You want to make sure that, you know, you connect to the right people who have the right resources to help you thrive. That's what I want to say. And that women after fibroids, there is life after fibroids. If you had the opportunity to see before and after pictures, you'll be able to see that, you know, there is life after fibroids. Yeah. And that's basically what I want to say.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oyinkan. So a few things that I learned from talking to you, which has been consistent throughout a couple of other episodes that we've had, is the importance of being your own advocate. You know, so I also want to urge members of our community to not only be supportive of women, especially who go through these issues, and also not only to have empathy, but also to encourage one another to be each other's advocate and to make sure that, you know, if you don't feel like something is the right thing to do, or if you don't feel like what a doctor is trying to tell you to do, then it's probably not right for you. It doesn't mean the doctor is not right, but it's probably not right for you. So listen to yourself first. I know that sometimes it's very difficult to be your advocate, especially in the African environment, like doctors who feel like you're trying to tell them what to do. They're the professionals, right? So I mean, if that's the case, just use another doctor until you will find that doctor who will listen to you and who will basically, for lack of a better word, vibe with you, because your situation is evidence that for all the women who are very shy, who are shying away from doing surgery, fibroid surgery, or at least who are discouraged and afraid, your own experience is evidence that you can have all those surgeries and still come out right and okay on the other side. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story. You know, I really hope that the conversation doesn't end here, and it's definitely not going to end here between both of us. And also on this topic, you know, I will closely be following what you're doing through your organization, and I'm sure to send my own support as much as I could. And I just want to thank you immensely for taking the time to share your story on this platform. And I guess we will talk more.
Definitely. Just before you go, as you were talking, I remembered, but I'd like to put it, because you already touched on it, but I'd like to say that women are allowed several opinions. So you're allowed a second opinion if you need one. Yeah. You're allowed a third opinion. In fact, I say to women, if you need a 10th opinion, by all means get it. Yeah. The chances are that if all the doctors are saying the same thing, you know, they're all aligned, right. It means that, you know, that's the option that you should choose. Yeah. You should never, you know, be compelled to do something that, you know, works
doesn't sit right.
Your belief. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're welcome. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.